session, Electrify Your Product Management Career with Lauren Chanley. My name is Margaret Kelleher. I'm a Director of Colleague Success at VMware, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Please use the chat for an interactive conversation with other attendees, and please use the Q&A tab for any questions. I'm excited to introduce Lauren Chanley. Lauren has a passion for empowering women and connecting people, and is an active speaker and mentor throughout the Bay Area product and startup community. Over her career, Lauren has led product teams at StubHub and Care.com. And in fact, it was the product team at Care.com that inspired her to create the career development framework that she's sharing with us today. Currently, Lauren works with companies on everything from acting as an interim executive to designing product strategy. And we're thrilled to have her share her insights with us. Please join me in welcoming Lauren Chanley.
Thank you, Margaret, for that intro. I am so excited to be here. And thank you, everyone, for joining in this afternoon session about electrifying your product management career. As Margaret mentioned, this is a framework that I developed for my team at Care.com, and I'm going to be sharing it with you today. Specifically, it's called the Product Decagon. And it's a framework that I use to plan my career development and that I encourage my teams to use as well. It helps you translate your long-term career vision into a mix of the different skills that it represents. And that allows you to diagnose where you are today and map out the gaps that you need to work on for you to reach your future potential in the future you. The reason why I think it's so important is because I know that you need to have a vision for where you want to go and then put together a plan for how you get there. There are times when your career aspirations might change or different opportunities might come your way. But by really focusing your time and energy on the skills that you think will matter, you will create the best probability and chance that you'll have the opportunities come your way. So I always saw my teams, desire to have a career development plan, but really kind of struggle on how to articulate what they needed from their managers or from the people around them. And that's the gap that this framework is trying to solve. So today, our plan is to do three things. First, we're going to talk about some of the limiting beliefs that might exist in our head and how we can overcome them so that we are ready to accept our future career development plans. The second thing that we'll do is talk about each of the 10 disciplines in the Product Decagon. So you'll understand each of the skills that are part of the Decagon before we talk about how to use it. And then we'll end by getting really tactical and talk about how you can use the Decagon yourself. So let's get started. The first limiting belief that I often hear is, I'm not a PM yet. And if you're in this camp, if you're an aspiring PM, I want you to know that you're not alone. In fact, when I did a survey of people who are PMs, almost all of us came from different roles before landing in product management. About half were engineers, another quarter were from business, and then there were designers and other roles that also found their way to product. So the Product Decagon is actually a great way for you to work on your aspiration to become a product manager. What you can do is your future vision of yourself can be landing that product role, and you can really focus on building the skills that you need to get that first product role. The second limiting belief that I've heard is, I don't know what I want to be. So how can I plot the future me if I don't know what that future me looks like? And I'll admit that even I don't always know what the future me looks like. On a given day, some days I see myself as a head of product. On other days, I see myself as a general manager, a founder. And when I surveyed a group of PMs again, I found that those results were really, really mixed. About 40% saw themselves as a head of product. Almost as many saw themselves as a general manager. Some people were happy being a subject matter expert PM. So not everybody knows what they want to be all the time, and that's okay. And you can still use the Decagon really effectively if you think about what some of those different roles that you might see in store for yourself and try to break it down to what are the key skills that are part of those. And the last limiting belief that I want to talk about is that I need to be good at everything. I think this one hits home a lot, especially for women with imposter syndrome, that I can't apply for a job unless I meet every criteria. I can't be the head of product unless I have done every type of project under the sun. And that's simply not true. Even though PMs are generalists, that doesn't mean that we have to be good at everything. Depending on what your long-term vision for yourself is, you will need to spike in some areas more than others. And actually, all of our decagons should really look different depending on where we see ourselves going. Somebody who sees themselves as a general manager is going to have a different set of strengths than someone who sees themselves as a head of product. So one of the key insights that you'll get from using the Decagon is the knowledge of knowing where you should spend your energies, because those skills are the most important for you to develop, and where you should deprioritize and not focus as much time on your development. All right, so who's with me? Who's ready to smash your limiting beliefs and get ready to electrify your product management career? Let's talk about the 10 disciplines now. The first discipline, product discovery and execution. Now, this is everything that you think of in a product management role. It's being able to identify user needs, being able to prioritize amongst different solutions, and then writing those user stories, delivering them through the product lifecycle. These are core functions that product management must be able to do regardless of whatever level you're at. The second discipline is people management. So people management is your ability to grow people and organizations successfully. Can you coach your team members? Can you hire a team? Can you onboard them? These are skills that you need to develop in people management. The third bucket is leadership. Now, of course, leadership is highly tied to people management, but it's not the same. In leadership, it doesn't matter where you sit on an org chart. What matters is your ability to inspire and motivate a team. So every product manager is displaying leadership, because whether you're talking about one feature or an entire product roadmap, your job is to help your teams understand what that vision is, why the work that they're doing contributes to the company's goals, how their work matters to customers, and that is leadership. The fourth discipline is communication. How do you bring along others in the journey? And this can take on a variety of forms. It can be oral, it can be how you write reports, documentation, how you communicate in Slack. It can also be written. How convincing are you in a one-on-one setting? How convincing are you if you're pitching to the leadership team about an opportunity that you want to see funded? Communication is very critical for a product manager role where you're really sitting at the intersection of a lot of different functions. Fifth discipline is strategic thinking. So how do you balance opportunities and risks? How do you balance between short-term and long-term? This is especially important when you're thinking about the product roadmap. There's always that tension between, do you pick something that's going to be good for your near-term goals, or do you make an investment that might not pay off in the short term, but could have really important long-term implications? Strategic thinking helps you balance understanding the competitive landscape, understanding what your company's strengths are, understanding what users want and need, and putting that together into a plan that's going to help your product win. We're more than halfway through. Here's discipline number 6, user empathy. User empathy is, of course, really important to that product execution function of understanding user needs. And this really gets to the different techniques that you can use in order to develop user empathy. So this is everything from understanding how to do qualitative research, interviewing your customers, moderating a panel. This is also quantitative understanding. How can you use data about user behavior to really inform your deep understanding of your users? Seventh discipline is analysis. So again, similar to user empathy, you need to be able to look at the data and draw insights from them. So this could be diving into user behaviors and data. It could also be understanding the nuts and bolts, the numbers of your business and why the ROI is there for you to take on this project. Analysis is more than just moving numbers around in a spreadsheet. It's about drawing out those insights so that you can tell the story behind the numbers. Discipline number 8 is technical fundamentals. So a lot of times I hear people wonder if a product manager has to have an engineering background in order to be successful. And my answer is always no, you don't. You don't need to have a degree in engineering to be successful, but what you do need is the ability to be able to communicate with engineers, to be able to see a couple of different options and product requirements and see what the impact might be in terms of development effort. So a technical understanding, the technical fundamentals means that you can understand the language and the basics of what's important in order to understand some of the nuance in the decisions that you make. And similarly with design, you also want to have a good grasp of the fundamentals. You want to understand what makes up a good visual design. What are the trends in interaction design? Similar to with technical fundamentals, this is about you having productive conversations with your designer to really be able to partner with them on designing the best user experience for your customers. And lastly, we come to number 10. The 10th discipline is new technologies. The fun in technology is that things are always changing. Every day, every year, there's always new things that are coming out. And even though your product might not use every new technology all the time, it's important for you as a product manager to keep your pulse on what the important trends are, to understand what's happening around you and understand where you should be pulling in new technology. When does that chatbot add to the user experience? How can you use AI to really enhance what you're able to deliver to your users? It's not technology for technology's sake, but knowing what the menu of different options are available to you so that when you do have a problem, you can see if that technology is a good fit for it or not. So those are the 10 disciplines that make up the Product Decagon. And now we're going to talk about how you can actually use the Product Decagon for yourself. So this is how the Product Decagon looks. It looks kind of like a spider web. It's got 10 sides, one for each of the disciplines. And then within each slice, there's a rating for how much of that capability you already have. But before you even put pen to paper, the first step is really to envision your future self. Have that picture in your mind before you start filling it out. And then once you're ready, then the first thing to do is to rate yourself on where you are on each discipline on this 5-point scale. You have a foundational understanding if you've seen something 1 or 2 times, but you've really never put it into practice. So this might be if you read an article about something or learned about another project, but you didn't work on it. You start to build a beginner level understanding when you have started to work on it, but you still need help to get it done. So you're not able to do it independently. When you move to the intermediate level, what that means is that you can complete simple cases independently, but you might still need some help if it comes to a more advanced case. At the advanced level, you can complete even complex cases independently. And finally, if you're an expert, you're the one who's writing the playbook and coaching others. So as you rate yourself, just think about where you are on each of these levels for each of the disciplines. And I've kind of filled in for you here what it might look like if you are somebody who's relatively new to product after moving into product from an engineering function. So you can see there's sea green shading that shows where you might be on each of these disciplines. The next thing you want to do is think about your future self. And you want to do the same exercise, thinking about the levels of mastery for each of the disciplines. And you want to draw a red line or whatever color you want around where that level is. So I would definitely recommend picking two different colors so it's really easy to see the difference. And you can see here where I've drawn a red line, it shows where you might want to be if you want to be ahead of product one day. And why I love this is because you're able to really easily see where those gaps are. All that white space that exists between the red line and the sea green, those are your areas that you will want to develop if you want to see yourself grow into a head of product role. So those blue lines are where you might choose one or two skills that you want to focus on developing yourself in this next period of time. So those are the 5 steps to use the Product Decagon. One of the PMs at Care.com used the Product Decagon and increased her people management skill by 2 levels in less than a year because she was able to put pen to paper and really articulate that she wanted to focus on people management. It aligned with some opportunities in her area, and she really gained experience and increased her capability. So I want to see you try it for yourself. I've put together a free download, a free workbook. All you have to do is go to my website, laurenchanlee.com/product-decagon, and you can get this workbook right now today. The workbook will guide you through questions that help you envision your future self. It'll give you a blank decagon that you can use to assess yourself, and it contains an index of all the skills broken down even further than what we talked about today. And then lastly, it will ask questions that help you plan your development and think through where you need support from your manager. So I hope that you'll give the Product Decagon a try and that this will help you electrify your product management career. Thanks for joining me today. I think we have a few minutes for questions.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Yes, we do have some time for questions, so that's fantastic. Thank you. So the first question is kind of two similar ones, right? So it's, what do you recommend to beginning PMs who don't have an experienced PM in the company who can help with skill development? And the same one is kind of, what is the best way to find a mentor when trying to shift into product management?
Thanks, Margaret. Yeah, you're right. Those are pretty similar questions. So thank you for grouping them for me. Um, this situation happens a lot, I think, in smaller companies. And more recently, during COVID, I actually mentored 2 different PMs where they were at a company, they had just recently transitioned to product management, and then their company went through layoffs and they became the only product manager. So it can be really tough when you feel like there's nobody within your company that you can go to. When you're new to product management, I think a lot of what you need to work on is around building that first discipline that we talked about around product execution. And my recommendation is that, don't constrain yourself just to thinking about who's in the company. Really think broadly about how you can activate your network to get the help that you need. If there's nobody in your company that is a product manager, then you can talk to your manager or your management team and understand, are you a startup where you could tap into the VC and their other portfolio companies? that could be a great support network on how you might find somebody else who has that skill set. Or, if you're part of an alumni group from college or from a previous job, you could also think about those sources for people that might be willing to help mentor you. I find that when you come with a very concrete ask of, hey, I need help with this specific skill set, how can you help me? That's a lot easier for someone to say yes to mentoring on rather than just a very kind of generic ask.
Great, thank you. The next question is, what tips do you have for someone wanting to enter a PM career from a software development background?
Yeah, that's actually one of the most common paths, as I shared at the beginning. 54% of people who I surveyed who are currently PMs actually came from the engineering side. And so it's quite a common path. Um, I think all of us have slightly different paths to PM, but if you're already an engineer and working within product teams, then oftentimes the first step is recognizing where there might be opportunities to stretch in your current role. So look for if there's an opportunity to go a little bit beyond what your current existing scope of responsibilities. Can you help your PM with a little side project? Can you shadow the PM? And that will just help you do two things. One is to get exposure to what the PM's doing. And secondly, that will be a nice test for you to understand if this is really the path that you want to pursue. So I think before even making an official shift, it's nice to have a chance to just kind of walk in the shoes of a PM and get experience with that. And once you have done that, then you start to have some stories that you can share so that when you are looking for the PM role, whether it's an opportunity within your company or outside, then you can really talk about what those experiences were and how you were able to demonstrate you've already performed some of the skills. With the Decagon, I would encourage you to map out the PM role as your goal of where you see yourself headed. And then um, it will help you think through some of those stories. So maybe at the surface, you think that you haven't done a PM role yet, but actually you've done a lot of the communication skills that you would need as a PM, or maybe you've done some of the analytical stuff. And so it will help you see where you have mutual areas of strength already.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for an engaging session. We are getting close to the time that we had today. I know it always goes so quickly. So to the attendees, don't forget to rate the session. I know there was a notice in the chat, so please don't forget to rate the session and provide your email address to be eligible for some fantastic prizes. And we thank you so much for attending today. Lauren, thank you so much for all of your guidance here. It was fabulous. Please go and download the Product Decagon that Lauren mentions here and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you.